I've never had this drink before in my life. You know, my go-to drink for Medieval Two Kingdoms is always Pepsi or Coke. I guess they're kind of interchangeable, aren't they? As long as they're diet, of course. But I went to my local store, I looked for a canned Coke, as I wanted that cool fizz sound, you know? And what did I find? No canned Cokes. What I did find, though, was a Java Monster energy drink with Swiss chocolate flavor. And I picked it up because of the cool coat of arms on it. I mean, it looks kind of medieval-like, right? Kind of Swissy, you know, kind of like those rebels up in those mountains over there. Come to think of it, I guess I never really wore a suit for Medieval 2 either. Unless, of course, I was playing on Christmas, or Hanukkah, or Kwanzaa, or Ramadan. A lot of days, I suppose. And I guess when you mention it, I never really wore sunglasses for Medieval 2 Kingdoms either, so... see ya. But here's the thing. Medieval 2 Kingdoms actually deserves all of them. And that's why I'm having this unidentified drink today. For you, my friends. I guess what I'm saying is that I really love Medieval 2 Kingdoms. And as you will find out in this video, there's a lot of reasons for that. So, even though this isn't my longest video, it is on one of those games that I love the absolute most. And before we start, I think it's time for some delicious Java Monster Energy Swiss chocolate. Skål! That's horrible. It's become quite the norm for Total War games to receive a handful of smaller DLC packs and a few larger expansions that add content and new campaigns to the game. But there was a time in Total War history when the games received no more than 1 or 2 expansion packs, and during that time, the only expansion for Medieval 2, namely Kingdoms, was truly revolutionary. It brought 4 entirely unique campaigns at the same time, allowing us to take part in some of the most exciting conflicts of the age. But Kingdoms even brought with it Total War's most game-changing feature ever in my opinion, namely a Hotseat mechanic, which would change Total War for me forever. All of these points are the subjects of this video, and if you're as excited as me to take a look back at Medieval 2 Kingdoms and why it's such an amazing expansion, I really hope you leave a like and consider becoming a channel member, as your support means the world to me. Thank you so much to my current patrons as well, who make these videos possible. And now, Medieval 2 Total War Kingdoms. According to the legendary Total War scholar Andy's take, aka myself, there's a before and an after the Medieval 2 Kingdoms expansion. Before Kingdoms, Total War had only really delved into larger maps and locations. Sure, you got much of Europe and the Middle East, but the landmasses themselves weren't the biggest. Yeah, looking at you, Alexander Screes. Kingdoms was the first Total War expansion to truly dive into smaller locations but expand the scope of the landmasses. Yes, I do know Viking Invasions did the same, but Kingdoms does it on a whole nother scale. So, quiet you. Kingdoms took a deep dive like never before into the medieval world of Total War, offering 4 different campaigns in one package. And let's start with a banger, shall we? The Crusades campaign. Man, as a teen, this campaign was so flippin' awesome. It even came around the same time as Kingdom of Heaven did, which was such a perfect mashup. I would play the Crusades campaign while Kingdom of Heaven was on TV, and man, those were the days. Oh, and this is still shit. This campaign takes place during perhaps the quintessential period of the medieval era, and begins right before the Third Crusade. We find ourselves solely on the border between Europe and Asia here, as the campaign map stretches from Constantinople in the west to Baghdad in the east, and from Georgia in the north to Egypt in the south. It's such a beautiful map at that, and you'll definitely feel the different vibe when playing as the Orthodox Byzantines in the north. Much love, much respect for the Orthodox Byzantines. Or the Ayyubid Egyptians in the south. But the star of the show arguably remains the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the Christian Crusader state established after the First Crusade 100 years prior to the campaign itself. Along with the Principality of Antioch, they are the only new factions in the campaign, as you could actually play as the Byzantines, Egypt, and the Turks in the original Medieval 2 campaign as well. I just find that so much come together in this campaign. The music has been changed to sound much more Middle Eastern, the map looks warm and sunny, and the fact that we're only located in the east gives the whole campaign a sense of being in faraway lands compared to the original Grand Campaign. Part of the fun of the Kingdoms expansions is that you're not really starting from scratch as you do in Medieval 2. Your cities are larger from the beginning, and so are your armies, even offering you knights from the get-go. The Crusades campaign offers you Varangian guards as the Byzantines, for example. Much love, much respect for the Varangian guards. Ghulams for Egypt right from the start, or Knights of Jerusalem for that kingdom. One of the coolest aspects of Kingdoms is that it also adds special characters and events that never occurred in the original campaign. Egypt begins with the legendary Sultan Saladin, and to simulate the Third Crusade, the Crusader states receive emerging armies from the homeland, so Richard the Lionheart becomes an available character, for example.
Heeding the call of Christendom, two of Europe's greatest kings, Richard I of England and Philip II of France, have arrived in the Holy Land, ready to lead the Third Crusade to glory and help restore the Kingdom of Heaven.
In addition, you should never feel safe as the Byzantines, as a certain Fourth Crusade will pop up at the historically appropriate time, and threaten to destroy everything you hold dear if you're not careful. Much hate, much disrespect for the Fourth Crusade. Gross. As I've stated several times on this channel, one of my favorite Total War memories, and the one feature that made me play these games 10 times as much as I normally would have, is the Hotseat mechanic. Hotseat is a feature in many strategy games that allows you to play with several people on the same computer at once. It's a perfect feature for turn-based strategy games because you can actually take turns playing, so it doesn't really diminish the experience. The only caveat is that you can't play battles against your fellow players, but that's an insignificant price to pay. Either way, Hotseat allowed me and my friends to cooperate as the Crusader states and the Byzantine Empire at the same time, preparing for hostile invasions and other dangers, and it really made this campaign that much more exciting. Oh my god, let me tell you. I have spent thousands of hours in Medieval Two Kingdoms just because of Hotseat. Every evening, every weekend, me, my brother, and my cousin would come together, eat Indian food, drink Pepsi, and play some Medieval Two Kingdoms. Obviously often with mods, but the awesome thing with Kingdoms was that Hotseat was actually implemented for every mod out there made for Kingdoms, meaning that all of a sudden we could all play Third Age, Stainless Steel, or any other Kingdoms mod at the same time. And that was bonkers. It's extremely hard to say which of the Kingdoms campaigns I love the most, the Crusades, or this next one, which really took more familiar factions to the next level.
Britannia, a land of emerald isles, a land of kings, a land of war. England. King Henry sits upon a hungry throne, thirsty for more land. The Norwegians, warriors happy to pay the blood price for their ambitions. Britannia, one realm, 5 kings, total war.
The Britannia campaign, and the soundtrack, which is just so beautifully iconic. The Britannia campaign takes place solely in the British Isles, on a then absolutely massive map of England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, and yes, the glorious islands held by Norway. This campaign felt extra close to me because Norway had never been a playable faction in any Total War game I'd ever played. Now it is true that Viking Invasion once again, for the original Medieval, did in fact include Norway itself, which would have made Britannia even better, but I'm not one to complain here. Britannia felt lively and colorful, and for such a small place, it actually housed many different factions, all clearly distinguishable in terms of units, specialities, challenges, and starting locations. Playing as England made you feel like a grand empire, yet one struggling to keep your own kingdom intact while keeping the Norwegians and Scots at bay, while at the same time trying to hold on to unruly territory in Ireland. The Scots, on the other hand, is a minor but established faction, capable of holding their own and advancing on England should they want to do so. And the Norwegians, located quite all over the north, is a faction relying on the sea for protection, but if able to consolidate its armies, can be made into quite a powerful force. Here too we have special and awesome events, such as the emergence of William Wallace for the Scots, which will fire depending on several factors, Norway, which will receive reinforcements from the homeland, and England can send Prince Edward on a crusade, which, when he returns, brings home a crusading army along with much more experience. The battles were fun too, and I really like how they made these factions rely on different strengths. The English of course have their knights and cavalry, while the Scots rely on their noble Highland pikemen. The Norwegians offer heavy infantry carrying two-handed swords, the Welsh have excellent bowmen, and the Irish serve up some mean skirmisher units that can tear any army apart from afar. The battles remain fun because of these unique faction strengths and weaknesses, and I think that's crucial to give such a small location this much spice. Britannia is definitely a somewhat smaller campaign than the Crusades, yet one with just as much personality. I particularly love the updated castle models here, which is something that was never changed for the Crusades campaign for some reason. I really think some of the genius of the Britannia and the Crusades campaign are these smaller changes, like in the music or the castle designs, because even though there's not that much new in the game, audio-visual tweaks like these really makes it feel like a different vibe altogether, and I think changes like these are kind of what's lacking in the newer Total War expansions, to be honest. Now comes the campaign I find to be the least exciting, yet one that still has something to offer. My least favorite is the Teutonic campaign, which is centered around the Baltic Sea. Here, the Teutonic Order wage a crusade against the pagan Lithuanians, who must either withstand the Catholics or accept conversion, but there are other playable factions here too. The Danes in the north have the ability to form the Kalmar Union if they conquer all of Scandinavia. Ugh, Danes. I'm kidding you, Danes. This is for you. And Novgorod in the east gives you the chance to take the principality further west. The Teutonic campaign definitely feels like the darkest one, if only for the subject matter itself, but I also feel like it's the blandest, perhaps due to the many factions taken straight from vanilla, the map, which looks rather hastily put together, or perhaps the setting itself. And now comes the last campaign, but definitely not the least innovative. In fact, the Americas campaign is perhaps the most standoutish of them all, offering a campaign of massive differences.
Speak of the new world and men dream of riches, glory and conquest. This land is home to the fearsome and decadent Aztecs, a people who appease their great sun god with hearts torn from the chests of their enemies. And enemies the Aztecs have aplenty. A new enemy sails on the horizon, bearing steel and marching under the Holy Cross. To Spain, the New World is a land of hope, a land where the Holy Word is delivered on the end of a sword.
Here you get to play as the Aztecs and the Mayans, two Native American factions that play quite like the Old World factions, but with different strengths and weaknesses. The Apache tribe to the north are perhaps the most interesting here, offering various light infantry and cavalry troops, yet ones that can actually make use of Western weapons. And then there's Spain, the faction with the best soldiers, but also the least men, meaning one has to be clever to survive. Further, since the entirety of the map is uncharted territory to each of the factions, much of the campaign map is shrouded in complete darkness until it's been explored, meaning that the Americas campaign offers a lot more mystery and surprise than the others. The vastly different units and fighting styles, including the late era units of the Spanish conquistadors, which include gunpowder units and cannons, really makes this one of the most dynamic battlefields in the entire game, and I love that Kingdoms actually included an Americas campaign, which in many ways is a poetic way to close out both this game and its era.
A land where empires are born. A land of total war.
This campaign really makes you feel like horrible Spanish explorers and brave Native American defenders. In many ways, Kingdoms plays just like the original campaign, adding very little in terms of actual campaign mechanics or features. But what it does add is noticeable, especially because it's so in your face. Detailed new maps of important flashpoints of the medieval era, cool new events and characters that change up campaigns, especially the first time you play them, is a big deal. Add some cool new factions and the fact that each of these campaigns are much more intense than the original Grand Campaign, and you have yourself a handful of campaigns that are perfect to play alone, or indeed with your friends in Hotseat mode, which I just so wish would make a return to the Total War series. If I had one plea to CA, it would be to re-implement Hotseat for Total War. Yes, I guess it's all fine and good with multiplayer campaigns and stuff, but not everyone has a beastly computer, you know, and not everyone's significant other owns a gaming PC either. So, you know, Hotseat please. Hotseat? Yes? Hotseat? Kingdoms is so beloved by the fans for a reason. It not only brought so much new content to an already legendary game, but allowed us to for the first time play Total War campaigns with friends. And for that, it's probably one of the best Total War expansion packs ever made, and it's well worth playing even now. And that was Medieval 2 Kingdoms, friends. I just have a lot of memories from this game, and it's definitely the Total War experience I've played the most. Let me know what you think of Medieval 2 Kingdoms, and I'll be sure to relay it to Woody over here. If you enjoyed the video and this new format, do let me know in the comments, and if you enjoy what I do, I really hope you leave a like and consider supporting the channel further, either by becoming a channel member or a patron. Thank you so much to my current supporters as well, you guys are seriously the best. Yeah, there we go. Well, guys, thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.